Make it official. All right. So welcome everyone to this session about the Salesforce HubSpot integration. This is the HubSpot user group for HubSpot admins. We've got Brandy coming on here. She is a product manager at here at HubSpot. Over all these product lead, of over all these strategic integrations. So, Brandy.
Hello. I am here. I'm just trying to get the video. Give me 1 second.
This webinar platform is sometimes a little, has a bit of an attitude problem sometimes.
Sorry, just give me 1 second.
Sean, if you or anyone else here want to reach out to me with ideas about HUG sessions, I've just dropped my email into the chat there. Would love to hear from you. Would love to talk more with you about it. I want this to be as community driven as possible.
Oh. Perfect. Hold on 1 second. I think.
Welcome, everyone. I see people still kind of coming in here. We're just about to get started, having a little bit of technical difficulties. It's going to be okay.
Oh. Let me just join super quick and come back. I think I found it.
Okay. See you soon. So I'm curious, everyone, while we're waiting for this, agreed, it would not. For those of you who are in the room here, I would love to hear, are you here? Are you a user of the Salesforce HubSpot integration? Are you looking to maybe adopt it? Are you like what are you hoping to get out of this session? Where are you coming from in that regard? Hello, hey.
Awesome. Sorry about that, everybody, but here we are. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Brandy. I've been at HubSpot for about 8.5 years, so a while. I am a product lead of our strategic integrations group, so we focus on building integrations between HubSpot and outside partners. These are all built internally to best support our customers that are using these integrations. So I've worked on a handful of our strategic integrations, but today we are going to run through Salesforce, which I have had some part in this my whole entire time at HubSpot, so I know a ton about it. But yeah, so basically, I see the chat is bumping, which is great. To kind of kick things off, what I was going to do quick is just run through a handful of our features, but definitely want to make this as super interactive as possible. So just feel free to ask questions whenever, and happy to give some insight.
Yeah, just so you know, while you stepped out of the room, I asked everyone, how are they coming at this? Are they users of the integration? It seems like we have a lot of users. We also have some solutions partners who just want to know how to position it to their customers and be able to support it better.
Awesome.
So a good mix of people here.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch. It looks like a handful of folks aren't integrated, but thinking about integrating. I guess what I'll just add a little insight to quickly is, so our Salesforce integration has been one of the longest running strategic integrations we've had at HubSpot. It has a lot of features, and actually a lot of the inspiration for some of our integrations we have today come from our Salesforce integration. Because Salesforce is such a big platform and we get all different types of customers that use it, want to integrate, use different parts of HubSpot, there's a ton of different customization options. Basically, what we've tried to do is just add a lot of flexibility pending for how you want to use the integration. For example, we kind of see a handful of different groups of how they use the integration. So for example, I would say our biggest persona is folks that are using our marketing hub tools and doing all their marketing, their lead gen out of HubSpot and HubSpot's marketing tools, but they need to connect up the CRM. They want to help sales get all the insight and all that great, HubSpot marketing data that we have into Salesforce. So that's like one of our biggest use cases that we see folks using it. Mostly HubSpot is for like marketing and generating that. They need to send that data to Salesforce. And then also what's really powerful is we do have a two-way sync and a lot of features that provide you visibility into either if you're in HubSpot or if you're in Salesforce. But then we can also sync a lot of that visibility back into HubSpot. So for example, if you want to close the loop or get a full picture view of your business, you can sync those back, especially from a marketer's perspective, when sometimes you generate new contacts and you're like, what happened to them? Did they close? Did anything come from that? Should we run that blog again? There's a great way to really just tie your marketing and sales together. So that's one of the biggest common use cases. Another one we do see is we see a lot of folks using our sales tools in addition with Salesforce. Maybe Salesforce is doing a lot of their reporting or operations matter, and they have their sales teams or marketing teams both out of HubSpot. So this is a big reason why we have a lot of two-way data syncs and features for all different types of use cases. But yes, we do see a bunch of them using our sales tools also. And then our newest growing one is definitely folks using more of Service Hub. So they're using Service Hub and maybe Salesforce is their main CRM, and they need to sync those service or ticket conversations, back and forth. And that's actually an area that we're adding a lot more to. And we've been working on the end of this year and going into next year. So I'll definitely touch on that. But yeah, so those are some common use cases. We see people using it all different ways, and that's why there's a ton of different features just to kind of support that creativity of how you might be using it, what's best for your business, and what's the relationship, and what tools are people in and trying to get their job done. So that's a quick high level. I'm just quick scanning the chat to see if there's anything interesting. Perfect. Yeah, someone also commented about also like migrating from Salesforce. We actually do see that as well. The integration is a great way to have folks, start utilizing HubSpot, syncing in their data, give it a month instead of, just pulling the plug right away. So that's another great feature of our integration. We do have full import. So if folks are looking to move off or they're maybe using more parts of HubSpot and less parts of Salesforce, you can basically pull everything in, but still make things go back and forth, or eventually get all your data in and then uninstall as well if needed. But perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just start running through some of the features for the integration as a place to start. So let me go back here. I'll share my screen. And I guess just really quick, just from a technical standpoint, Kyle, can people talk out loud, or is the chat the only way I'll be able to?
The chat is the default way. I can make anyone I want to a presenter. So if there's someone we would like to bring on screen, Sean can type in all capitals. I can bring them on, even just temporarily, and then show them off. And so if anyone wants to,
I just wanted to double check.
Sounds like the invitation is there.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to double check that I could, if I need to keep an eye on the chat to make sure I didn't miss any questions.
Yeah. I'll keep an eye on it and pause you if something urgent comes up.
Awesome. Perfect. So here is basically our connected apps page where folks can see what integrations are installed, what they have integrated with their portal. And particularly for HubSpot built integrations, we're really trying to make this like the center spot for you to know all the features the integration has, all the settings, have really great visibility into if things are connected or disconnected. Because that is crucial to having an integration. If you didn't have that insight, or if things went wrong and you didn't know, why are you integrating in the first place? So we know that is crucial and important to our customers. So that is a big thing that we're looking to expand. So you'll actually notice across a bunch of our other HubSpot built integrations, we're trying to really add that visibility. Our QuickBooks one, for example, this style of like home and adding a lot more insight into like all the features and things that you can do. You'll be seeing that updated as well for our Salesforce integration later this year. Just because we hear a ton that folks are like, I don't know if I'm using it all. What are all the features? So just wanted to call that out as a CTA so that folks know, this is a great spot to come back to and check in. And now will also be used eventually as like a highlighter for net new features that are coming. Perfect. So when we jump into Salesforce, so first after you install, the first thing we do have here is our great sync health page. This provides a ton of insight into how many API calls the integration is using. And a quick call out here, because folks get a little confused with this. This is only referring to your Salesforce API call limit. So at HubSpot, for our HubSpot built integrations, we aren't using any HubSpot built or any HubSpot API calls. There's no limit for these apps that we built ourselves. So this number here is just calling out like, hey, how many do you want to use from the Salesforce side of things? And at what point should we stop? Because in Salesforce, you can have a bunch of different things integrated with your Salesforce account. So maybe there's some things that you want to prevent or update. So that's where you can have control for that there. Next here, we do have our sync error screen. This is a project that we've invested a ton into. And I think it's probably the most advanced sync error screen I've ever seen and worked on. A big reason why we've invested a ton into this is because HubSpot is very different from Salesforce. And a lot of times these errors happen because either you set up permissions or things that you don't want to happen, or if you don't want data to, interrupt Salesforce. So really what we were hoping this would add is insight into why some of these errors are happening, what's going on, and provide you a next step of how to resolve that error. So here you'll see for every single bucket, so these are the main buckets that we found. In every single bucket here, you're going to be able to see the error from a group. So this means, 64 records or objects are affected. But then you can also dive in even deeper. Here provides a lot more information to what is going on, what's happening on the field level, and you get access to all the records. So if you need to jump right away into Salesforce or jump into HubSpot to fix those, and you can also just export and bulk update as well. So this is something that we have done a ton with. Definitely we'd love to get to a place where it'd just be like a 1-2 click fix. But the biggest thing we wanted to get ahead of first was just providing a ton of visibility and access into the records from an individual standpoint and a group standpoint so that folks can, resolve them however is the best way with their HubSpot admin. Or maybe if you don't have time at all, you can grab them right away. Here's who's impacted. Let me send them an email and not have to wait for anything or not know what's going on. I am seeing a handful of questions, so I'm gonna take a quick look at those. So there was a question about merging companies. This is a big thing that has come up a ton. So yeah, basically right now, if you sync you sync companies between HubSpot and Salesforce accounts, as of today, you can't merge them in HubSpot. The workaround for that is to merge the companies or the accounts in Salesforce, because that will sync and basically, so if I have 2 companies in Salesforce that are syncing with 2 companies in HubSpot, when I go ahead and merge one to the other, it will then continue to sync with the correct one that it should be syncing with. And then the other one in HubSpot will just stop syncing. So there's a way then you could build a list or something by the last time those synced to then just delete them. A reason why we haven't allowed merging yet is that our account sync is very, very, very complex due to how companies in HubSpot deduplicate, due to how companies are associated with records in Salesforce. And right as of today, we don't delete anything in Salesforce. And by opening up merging does kind of allow that for, should they merge and delete? Should we just stop syncing the things? So we do, I think, really need to rethink that eventually. And right now we want to invest in some other projects. So the workaround today is to merge and clean up in Salesforce, and those would carry into HubSpot. But we definitely have heard a lot of folks are very interested in like our deduplicating tools. Would love to have that, update other systems, which I think is a really cool idea. I'm a super big data nerd, and I think cleaning up your data is very important. So I think there's some really cool things we could do down the road. We just have to be really careful because our account sync is very, very specific and very intertwined with how Salesforce works and leads and contacts and then things in there. So we do want to be very cautious about it. Make sure we're not adding duplicates or anything to folks' portal.
Jessica asks the follow-up questions. What if both companies aren't syncing to Salesforce? If no related prospects are syncing as contacts, a company wouldn't exist in Salesforce.
Yep. Which, how does it get into that state? So the way we deduplicate is if you like import all your companies, or let's say, and sorry if this is getting a little too technical for folks, but basically if you import your company, so let's say I have Brandy in HubSpot, and let's just say I work for Chipotle. So I'm associated with that Chipotle company record in HubSpot. And then in Salesforce, there's a Brandy, and she's associated with Chipotle in Salesforce. When you go to import, the way we were deduplicating companies is we're looking at, okay, is there a Brandy in HubSpot? Cool. Yes, here she is. They're going to be buddies and they're going to sync up to each other. Then we look at who is Brandy associated with from a company record. And we see that, oh, Brandy's associated with Chipotle. So that is the Chipotle record that Brandy's Salesforce account Chipotle should match up with. So that is how we are deduplicating when things go to sync and you have company and contact sync turned on. So one of the best ways to kind of do that is through either just turning on the sync and things will start matching up if you have company and contact sync turned on, or running an import, and that should also then trigger and match everybody up. If they're just standalone companies, right now we wouldn't be able to match up to them because we do match up via contact association. So yeah, best ways are either associating that with a contact or running an import.
Now Colleen's asking about parent-child companies. A quick question, meta question for you, Brandy. Is this how you do you like this? Taking tangents now. Do you want to save questions for the end? What are you most?
Yeah, no, I think this is great.
Okay.
I love the questions. So
this audience will ask you questions all day. They are fantastic. They are power users and they would love all your technical explanations. So if you're comfortable just like taking them as they come, I think that'd be awesome.
Yes, no, I'm more than happy to do this. Want to make sure it is very interactive for everybody. I can, do the demo in my sleep. So this is definitely more fun for me. So yes, so parent-child. This is on our list. We did some updates to basically allow parent-child, if you're doing parent-child in HubSpot to make it work. Or no, I think that was flexible associations. Sorry, flexible associations. Parent-child sync right now, similar thing. We do not have any plans to like update syncing those parent-child relationships. I will say, I think a lot of things we have to think through is when HubSpot comes out with it, we have to figure out how exactly that matches up with Salesforce. And Salesforce has had some of these things in place longer than when HubSpot comes out with them. And, we try to think through things in a very user-friendly way. So that sometimes does make things a little bit complicated when we're trying to like sync things directly to each other. We're planning on doing a lot of updates with sync. We're doing a lot of cool stuff for some of our other integrations. And I think that will eventually open things up for our Salesforce integration. But we have a lot of customers using it. So we're trying to definitely just keep things and rolling out different sync is very, you got to be very careful and make sure everything's in a good spot. But I think a lot of those bigger themes would likely come, I'd probably say in the next 2 to 3 years, just because they are so complex. And Salesforce is a very big complex theme, but we do want to open that up and allow a lot more of that. So yeah, in addition to parent-child, we've heard a ton also about flexible relationships and syncing those between Salesforce and HubSpot. But yeah, I think full transparency, I don't think any of that will be crazy coming this year, but I think in the next couple of years, we are going to try to make a lot of updates to our sync and provide customers to try it. But in no way are we going to, force or update folks just because we know there's a lot of data in Salesforce and a lot that syncs in. So perfect. I see another question here about how to sync the campaign. Super fun question. So if you see here, I do have a little Salesforce campaign tab. So previously, the way we sync campaigns back in the day we still do this today, is that what we do is we sync in. So if I have a contact that's syncing between HubSpot and Salesforce and it's associated with a campaign in Salesforce, and what we still do, but this was the previous way to see that data in HubSpot, is that data, sorry, I have way too many tabs open, so I think my computer is just on the verge of crashing. That data appears in a campaign field called campaign ID. So I'm just applying a filter so we can find a record here. So if we go to Trisha's record, so basically any campaigns that they're associated with in Salesforce will populate, oh, perfect, it's right there. We'll populate that campaign ID field. And then this field can be used, I think, by, yeah, I've been integrated with Salesforce for probably like 6 years. So my portal has a lot of weird stuff going on. So I'm sure I deleted this campaign in Salesforce, which is why we're seeing that. But normally you just see the name of the campaign. But basically, this was kind of the way we recommended in the past. So you could use this campaign and you could build lists and you could see, hey, I want to see everyone that's associated with campaign 7011. You could build a list and send them an email. We have received a ton of feedback of how that is not enough information. You know, if campaign in Salesforce has a lot of additional properties, they have a bunch of statuses, and that is crucial to, you know, a marketer. They want to email everyone that is actually attending in a campaign or didn't attend a campaign. So the way now we recommend syncing campaign data is through our custom object sync. So about I forget, it was either a year or 2 years ago, we added custom object sync. So you'll see that fun thing here. And you can map, in addition to custom objects from Salesforce, you can map additional standard objects as well. So now you can sync like invoices, orders, campaigns. If you have a cat object, you know, whatever it might be, you can map those and sync that data into a custom object in HubSpot. So now we recommend I think we'd love to figure out a world down the road where we just send campaigns from Salesforce to campaigns in HubSpot, but they're very, very different in just the matter of the fields. The way we do more of like analytics online, where Salesforce is more of like your budget, your properties, the address, location. So we see a world where maybe they could be combined together and displayed, but as of right now, the cleaner way is to actually set up a Salesforce campaign sync into a custom object. You'll have field mappings and everything so you can map all the data. And then just to show you quick of what that then looks like in HubSpot is then here, when I go to Salesforce campaign, my custom object, here, oh no, invoices, click the wrong thing. 1 second. Perfect. So here you can see the actual campaign as a record. You can then have it associated with contacts, associated with companies, and I believe you can associate it with a campaign. If not yet, that is coming. They're doing the campaign team is doing a ton of work with custom objects so that you can tie them together. So this is a great way to really tie HubSpot campaigns to Salesforce campaigns. And now you get all those fields, you get that status field that you can trigger automation and stuff off of. And then you'd have those contacts if they're associated with it, you know, pull into HubSpot as well in those associations. So a lot of cool stuff there. Definitely would recommend that way if you want more insight into your Salesforce campaign data in HubSpot.
Okay, I think you're officially caught up on questions. If you want to go back to your flow.
Okay.
People have also been putting a lot of stuff in the Q&A, but I think we can circle back to those at the end because it's a long.
Perfect. Cool, perfect. I will then just run through quickly some of our other settings. So as I mentioned here, you know, this is really where we're trying to provide folks with a lot of insight into like how things work, what control you have, especially too if you have like different folks that are managing these integrations over time. We want to make sure that if someone new comes on board, they come here and they go, cool, I know exactly how this is working and I know what I can do or update. So as of today, right now, you'll see a handful of different settings here. Sorry, as I mentioned, I have way too many tabs open. Handful of different settings here controlling like how things sync. And then right now for our contacts, companies, and deals, here's where you're actually going to map the data. We are doing a lot of updates to the contact companies and deal tab to have them look a lot like our custom object tabs. So this is kind of our new framework that we have on getting a lot of insight into what is syncing to what, how do things update or delete, and then also those field mappings all within one tab versus under different tabs. So that is something big that is coming. Also, as I mentioned, that home tab of having a lot of insight into all the features that we do. But basically, this is the best place to see all the sync features. And so, yeah, as of today, we have two-way contact company, deal sync, activities. We sync all HubSpot timeline interactions into Salesforce activities. And then you can sync all Salesforce activities into HubSpot tasks. Activities is an area that we're hoping to improve this year and update it and make it way more aligned with all our activities in HubSpot. And then all these other tabs are the custom object sync. So you can set up as many custom object syncs that you have in HubSpot. So as I mentioned, if you have 20, you can sync 20 custom objects, and you can add additional standard objects as well. Like if you have orders in Salesforce or products and you want to actually sync those into a custom object, you can do that today. And someone mentioned that, yes, custom object sync is enterprise only. Perfect. So that is the main thing here for all of the data sync. And so, basically,
one question on that, Colleen is asking if there's a way to sync some contacts as leads and others as contacts in Salesforce instead of all contacts being synced as one or the other.
Great question. So we do sync all. So basically the way the sync works is when I turn it on, because it is two-way, we will sync. So if I have a contact in HubSpot, and just to get everyone else up to speed, so HubSpot only has one contact object, where in Salesforce there's leads and there's contacts. Basically in Salesforce, once a lead is converted into a contact, that lead no longer exists. They kind of are tied together. So in HubSpot, when we create a new contact and it goes to sync to Salesforce, we first are going to scan all your leads. And we're going to say, hey, is there any lead with Brandy at HubSpot.com? Nope. Okay, cool. Now we're going to scan all your contacts. Okay, yes, here's Brandy at HubSpot.com. We'll sync up with her. If we do not find a contact that matches Brandy, you have the option here to say, what is that going to be created as? Do I want it to be created as a contact in Salesforce, or do I want it to be created as a lead? Then vice versa, when we're syncing everything back, I believe all leads and contacts will sync into HubSpot. An important note is that when you turn on the sync, it will only sync in records moving forward. So you do have the option to only import leads or contacts if you only want one of them to come into HubSpot. As of right now, we don't have any filter options to say like only everyone whose favorite color is yellow can sync into HubSpot. We will sync all leads and contacts. But a common way that people work around this is by taking the integration user and setting up permissions, so that basically we call it kind of selective sync, where you can set up this integration user to only have access to contacts, because basically whatever this integration user has access to is what HubSpot has access to. So if you think of this user as basically a HubSpot employee and someone logging in, that is a good way if you do want to minimize what data syncs. That's the best way to kind of control that today. But as I mentioned, that's something we would love to expand in the sync down the road too. Cool. Perfect. So just to carry on, so yes, we have a handful of data syncs. And what's really great about that is that all our data that you sync into HubSpot can then be used across our marketing, our list seg, our automation, and reporting. So that's kind of a common question I hear sometimes of like, oh, can we do X reporting in HubSpot? Or, oh, can we do this automation in HubSpot? That all comes down to, are you syncing the correct data, and do you have the correct property to build those filters? So that's a big way to look at it strategically. If you're trying to only, see a segmentation or something, make sure the correct properties and stuff are mapped so you have access to that data in HubSpot. A couple other features just to call out. So as I mentioned, we do have a HubSpot embed where you can actually embed parts of HubSpot's tools into Salesforce if maybe your sales team is working mostly out of Salesforce. I have an example of what that looks like today. So as of right now, you can take this, it'll be added as a visual force module into Salesforce. Here you can see the HubSpot score or the predictive score. You can also see timeline activities, and you can filter by them if you want to see more or less. This would just appear in like a little module in Salesforce, depending on your page layout. We want to give folks a better view. And then you can also set up workflow enrollment. So if you did want to enroll a contact into a workflow, you could do it right from within Salesforce. There's an option here too to lock down permissioning of who has access to those workflows if you don't want your sales team to have access to all the workflows. This is something that we're actually expanding a lot here. What we're looking to do is actually remove the lead scoring thing. We'll leave customers to have this exact same panel, so I shouldn't say remove. You will still have this form, but we're actually going to add an additional visual force one as well. And that additional visual force will no longer have the lead scoring. It will give you tabs at the top to basically see, switch between different things. So you'll have access to the timeline. We're expanding this to give you access to all of the activities versus just 5. There's also going to be a property history tab here if you want to have access to just the property history or just the properties. So we're expanding that as well. We're going to add workflows, and then we're also we'll still have workflows. It's just going to move into a tab. And then another thing we're looking to add is a lot more of our sales tools. So if you want to do if you want to do meetings and stuff, if you want to have access to that, if you want to be able to do sequences. So we're looking to expand and bring a lot of that here into this visual force module for reps that are maybe wanting to use our tools and don't want to bounce between systems. You'll have access to that. We're looking to expand that in this coming year.
We have lots of questions. None are directly relevant to what you were just saying, so I don't know if you.
I'm happy to dive into those. Okay. A couple.
So one thing you did mention that activity syncs as tasks. Colleen is asking why that is. Why email activity in Salesforce shows as tasks. I think you touched on that a little bit, but
yes. So that is definitely just due to basically when HubSpot came out with tasks. I want to say like 6 or 8 years ago, we had already had our sync, and tasks was like the first kind of activity we had for sales. So that made sense of just like adding it, allowing folks to have that insight into it. But you're right, it's definitely outdated. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And now we have a ton of other sales activities that can be better matched with Salesforce activities. So that is actually something that we are looking to expand this year, is actually clean up how task and activities sync between HubSpot and Salesforce and make it more of like syncing emails to emails, syncing more meetings to meetings. So that is actually one of our goals for this year that we're looking to expand to give a lot more better clarity into like, okay, this is a meeting in Salesforce. It appears as a meeting in HubSpot. So stay tuned for that. I think that will be super exciting. Yeah, basically it was just that HubSpot kind of came out with a new thing. We want to give people insight, but it definitely needs some cleanup.
Colleen gave you a clap emoji, so I think she's happy with how you answered her question.
Perfect. Love it.
Sort of a follow-up question. Beverly asked, can you sync Salesforce tasks to HubSpot?
Yes, so Salesforce tasks sync into HubSpot tasks today.
Cool. And then the one that's a little farther afield, Antrul asks, what is the best way to align Salesforce state country pick list fields to the default HubSpot state country single line text properties? Ideally, we would want to make the HubSpot properties drop downs as well. I don't know if there's an integration specific answer to that. I have some resources on turning the single line text into pick lists, but for the integration.
I have a ton of thoughts on this one. And this is like a sync error that always happens that I think is a great example of how HubSpot and Salesforce are just different. And that's why, you get those really annoying errors. But basically, long story short, is like right out of the box, HubSpot has a single line text field for state and country, so that you could send any value in there if you want to do initials for a state, or if you want to do the whole word, or maybe I spell Pennsylvania wrong all the time. So this way data just like pours and sinks in. But if you have the state and country pick list set up in Salesforce, it says, you know, hey, these are the values for states and countries. Anything else that comes in is going to break it and fail and won't work. So definitely what I recommend, which I think Kyle recommends as well, is actually updating our HubSpot state and country fields to map exactly what you have in Salesforce. What I would recommend is like looking at those Salesforce pick lists and then adding exactly the internal value and the label of what they should be matched in. They're easy ways to like copy and paste both values into our property fields. That is the cleanest way. And I do think that is the cleanest way then if down the road you're like, I want to pull a list of everyone in Massachusetts, you'll have one Massachusetts value versus Massachusetts MA, Massachusetts spelled wrong 4 times. So that is definitely a great way to like clean data passing between systems. So that's exactly what I recommend for Salesforce. I think the other thing to keep in mind is like, how do other platforms you use also do state and country? Because some platforms, I don't know why, all do this very differently. So that would be the only other thing to call out, that if you do take your state and country pick list from HubSpot and plug that in, or sorry, in Salesforce and plug that into HubSpot, you know, if you're using, you know, MailChimp or Shopify or something, like, how are they doing state and country lists too? And that's, yeah, just some things to keep an eye out, but I would definitely recommend doing it for Salesforce if that's your main CRM and that's where all the data is.
No simple solution, sounds like.
Yeah, no simple solution. I think there's a problem here that HubSpot could eventually solve of just doing cool things of matching up state and country values, but I'll save that. What's it called? Pet rock for another day.
Yeah. Would be cool. Like value in MailChimp equals PA, value in Salesforce equals Pennsylvania.
Or just like Pennsylvania spelled incorrectly, PA, this, like all 5 of these, we use AI to just like always match up to Pennsylvania.
That would be awesome.
Feels like something we could do, but
maybe someday.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're once again caught up on. Oh no, one last question here. Oliver asked, I think the HubSpot visualizer on Salesforce is limited in where it can be added on a record page. Do you know if there is scope from Salesforce to allow it to be added to different places on the page?
That is a good question. I believe I had my Salesforce open and I think I lost it. So yes, I believe, I know it can be added to that main, actually, let me just quickly, let's pull up an example. I believe, yeah, it can only be added, and I think this is kind of due to Lightning, but I would need to double check. But basically, because we have a Visualforce module, it can only be added to where can be added, so it can be only added in like certain areas. There have been thoughts of us like expanding and adding a different tab, but we know that will like usually involve some package updates and things like that, and we're trying to keep it as simple as possible for our customers. Yeah, I guess long story short, I haven't heard of any big changes, but the common place we usually see folks add it. I remember my password. One second. Hold on. The common place we do see folks at it is on record pages under either the details tab or details or something else. I'm blanking on the name right now. But yeah, let's see if we can show that in a second. One other thing to call out is, right, so our Visualforce page can only be added to contacts. We do also have an account-based marketing Visualforce module. I just don't have that up. That can be added to the company record. And then when we go to make our updates to, as I mentioned, we are going to add another Visualforce module that can, it's going to have a bunch of other activities in the Visualforce module. And that one in particular is going to be added to whatever records you're syncing with Salesforce. So it's actually, instead of just being like a contact timeline embed, it's going to be a record timeline embed. So if you're syncing, you know, things to a custom object, if you're syncing, you know, deals to opportunities, you can actually now embed activity streams for those other objects onto other records as well. So yeah, just coming back to your question, I believe you can add the module under related and under details. But yeah, right now we don't have like a tab here that we could expand to, and you are limited to what the size is. But yeah, so for right now, that's where it can be added. We have heard folks wanting to see more, but as of right now, we're just going to try to like expand access you to. I think we also might expand with like other things we can do in here. So yeah, more to come.
So to give you a sense of the sort of crowd we got here, Tate says, I actually wrote a custom VF page that you can put anywhere on a Lightning page. You can add this to a tab, and there is some code there that you all can just copy and paste.
Perfect. Get it while you can. Love it.
Okay, I think you can continue on if.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm loving this. Perfect. So yeah, I think some others. So yeah, big aspect definitely is the data sync stuff. Oh, so the other thing that we do have is workflow actions. A way I kind of break down workflow actions compared to data sync is that data sync two-way is super important when you have like a record over here and a record over here, and updates are coming from both sides and you want to keep both of those updated. That is where sync is like super important. If you have maybe like, okay, X happens here and now I want something to happen over here, but they won't stay updated all the time. Kind of similar to Zapier. Like if folks are familiar with Zapier, like, okay, I want every time a contact submits a form, I want them to be added to my Excel sheet in Google Sheets. Kind of that like trigger-based actions and not really like a full sync is a great way to think about workflow actions. So I'm just gonna jump into one of our contact workflow actions here. And so basically we have two Salesforce workflow actions. These have been around for a while. Basically the two actions we have are set a Salesforce campaign or create a Salesforce task. So what this means is you can, I'm just gonna change this, turn this off, and change this, perfect. So basically if I wanted to say like email was sent, oops. Email is sent. Oh, come on. Is equal to apply. So basically what I'm saying here is, okay, every time email is sent to the customer, waited till Wednesday, I guess, and then create a Salesforce task called, in progress or not started, and add it to the owner of the email, priority high, so that, hey, every time we send an email to someone in HubSpot, I want the sales rep to get a task created for them to say, follow up with contact. So basically here you can trigger basically, hey, when X happens in HubSpot, create a task for my rep to follow up on in Salesforce. You can trigger off anything in HubSpot, sky's the limit. Property changes, new objects created, website interactions, marketing interactions. So that's what this task is. And then the other one, which I think is a little more common for like marketing campaigns, is set a Salesforce campaign. So this is a great example of kind of how to use campaigns together. So I could say here is like, when someone views my HubSpot website, add the campaign of webinar and set it as received. And this will kind of take that action of like automating when people do things in HubSpot with your marketing collateral to then attach them to campaigns in Salesforce. And then if you have the custom object sync set up for campaign, that campaign would then sync back into HubSpot and be associated with the contact. So you could see, yep, Brandy did, is now a tie to our Salesforce campaign, product webinar, and now you can trigger marketing emails off that. So those are two other workflow actions. Or the integration also. One other big thing that I did forgot to mention is I mentioned that end of last year, beginning of this year, we are doing a bunch of stuff with expanding a lot of our features to better support ticket sync. So one thing that will be coming out in beta, hopefully middle of February, is ticket sync. So as I mentioned, like today, technically with custom objects, today with custom objects, just reading the chat. Today with custom objects, you could technically sync Salesforce cases to a custom object case. You can definitely do that. What we are trying to do is though keep up with syncs as well. We would love folks to sync standard objects from Salesforce into standard objects in HubSpot as we start creating more standard objects. But due to how fast we can move, it does take a bit. So there are, I think, some pros and cons to just syncing the data to custom objects. there's a lot of like similar across the board things you can do with that. You can do list seg reporting. So there's a ton of power into syncing to custom objects. I think a difference to think about between our custom objects and our standard objects is that we're trying to add more special powers to our standard objects so that you do have a really important reason to sync it to the direct object versus just custom objects. So we are going to be looking to expand over time, syncing some of those standard objects in Salesforce directly to the standard objects in HubSpot. But we do want to open that up, let people pick and choose. So as I mentioned, you can sync, tickets to a custom object called sync. But eventually in the next month, we will have a tab here that says ticket sync. It will look a lot like this tab. You'll have, cases. So it's going to be one way initially, syncing Salesforce cases to HubSpot tickets. You'll have your field mappings, you'll have your settings, mappings. And then shortly after that, we will have the ability for two-way sync. For what we've heard, I know some folks aren't integrated with the app and might not be using Service Hub, but we've actually been hearing a ton of different use cases of folks using tickets in Salesforce or tickets in HubSpot. So we do know it's crucial to have a two-way ticket sync. So that's one that will be coming down the road. And then we also are hoping, going off the theme of better activity and task sync, we're going to hope to also do a lot more with our bot activities in Salesforce and also reflect that in Salesforce. So our main themes going into this year are ticket sync, and then improving task and activity sync, and then also adding better chatbot interaction sync as well. So that's on kind of the first half of our year radar.
Amazing. Thanks so much. And I'm glad you saw that comment in the chat. I was going to read it out in case you did. We have a couple questions here in the chat. Everyone else, if you could move over to the Q&A tab here. If you look at the top of the chat, there's general and then Q&A is next to it. Questions there can be upvoted. So if you want to go in and look through and upvote the ones you like, I will read them off to Brandy, most popular to least popular, and we'll see how many we can get through before we run out of time. But Brandy, if you want to tackle these couple in the chat, I'll work on getting my feet under me in the Q&A.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. So removing contact from Salesforce isn't the sync trigger. Interesting. Yeah, we have heard some, I think there's a big need. Oh, sorry, I should reread the question. The question was, removing a contact from a Salesforce campaign currently isn't a sync trigger. Is syncing Salesforce campaign as a custom object a fixed workaround for this? So yes, I don't know if you missed earlier, but definitely I recommend syncing Salesforce campaigns into a custom object in Salesforce. It's a lot easier for us to associate records and deassociate records as those happen in Salesforce if it's set up via the sync versus how it is today. We just sync a property value into a property. So definitely would recommend syncing Salesforce campaigns via a custom object. That just makes our lives a lot easier and I think displays the data a lot better. We don't have this as something that's well documented, and that's actually something that we're working on improving, of just cleaning up KB articles and stuff to better represent this. So yeah, more to come there, but that's definitely how we would recommend. Also, to your point of not having a sync trigger, we have been hearing more about wanting more Salesforce workflow activities of either the ability to just create a one-off lead or add more of that customization into what happens in Salesforce. So that's also something on our radar as well. Perfect. Next question was, is there a plan to have HubSpot chat conversations to sync in Salesforce? So yes, kind of our big plans for the first half of the year are ticket sync two-way, or first one-way, then eventually two-way. Then we're going to be clean up just how activities and tasks in general sync between HubSpot and Salesforce. And then as part of that, we do want to add the ability to sync chatbot conversations into Salesforce. We've heard that a ton, and that's definitely something that we're looking to improve.
Cool. So our most popular question in the Q&A right now came in 35 minutes ago. At some point today, could you walk us through the potential roadmap for the integration and any changes that may be coming? I feel like you've hit on this a couple times recently. Is there anything else you want to tease about coming attractions?
Yeah, no, that is the main one. Yeah, that is the main one. I think, yes, I think that is the main one. I think the other thing that we have heard a lot about is the ability to kind of have custom objects sync be two-way and actually allowing the creation of custom objects in Salesforce from HubSpot. That's also something that is on our radar. yes, those are the main themes going into this year are adding more or adding ticket sync, vastly improving the way we sync activities and tasks between the two systems, adding bot conversations, and then possibly something with the ability to create custom objects in Salesforce from HubSpot. So
cool. Then Rod asks, I would love to know if there will be a sync rule of always use HubSpot so that Salesforce data will not overwrite HubSpot data.
We have heard this a ton, which I love. It's like super exciting. Basically, back in the day, you know, we were just a marketing platform. So a lot of people were, you know, wanted HubSpot to be very careful about what they updated, and Salesforce was really the source of truth. We've really seen that drastically switch, which makes me more excited because that sounds like more folks are using HubSpot. So yes, as of right now, no. But we are thinking about a much long-term plan for our Salesforce integration, and particularly our sync engine that is powering it. Some other folks mentioned like merging companies and things like that, of things you can't do. So a lot of those things, and particularly the one you just mentioned, is something that we're looking to definitely improve on. Unfortunately, the answer is probably like next 1 to 2 years, just because we have to be very careful about it. But it's definitely on our radar. I'm vastly improving a lot of this stuff and providing customers maybe a new option of something they could use to get that insight and data.
Cool. Anil, who says great session, by the way, says, I asked about business units.
Yes.
Can you sync them? Does it work?
So as of today, no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are any business units information stored into a contact property or no? An actual property? I don't know if you know.
No, I think it's some other meta layer.
Yeah, so business units, so as of today, Salesforce, you can connect one Salesforce account to multiple HubSpot portals. We've heard a ton that people want to connect multiple Salesforce accounts to one HubSpot portal. So in addition to that and business units, that is part of the long-term sync plan to kind of like open that up and allow people to sync multiple accounts. A way also I kind of think about it is like, sometimes if you have multiple accounts too, those will be tied to different business units. So we're trying to think through that level as well, that if you have multiple accounts or, you know, like for Shopify, if you have multiple stores, maybe you want to like tie them to a specific business unit in HubSpot. So that is definitely on our radar. I think we're going to try to rework it like that to give people options. Because sometimes it does sound like the platform you're using or the account within the platform needs to be connected to a specific business unit. Yeah, nothing coming immediately, but I think that's definitely something we would want to give people access to down the road. And that's something we've heard a lot with our other integrations as well.
Cool. And then Tate wants your opinion on the lead object inside of Salesforce. For several of our clients, we have migrated them away from using the lead object altogether because of the difficulties caused from syncing between contacts and leads. Do you have
so like you have some thoughts? Yeah, so I've done a lot of, or I've wrapped my head around why Salesforce has it. It's I guess their original definition was like leads should be only prospects, you know, as soon as the sales rep starts interacting with them, they should become a contact. So I think there's a lot of different stuff you can do from like a reporting perspective in Salesforce. HubSpot just has like, you know, just the contact and everything's there and all the good stuff. But we've also heard a ton of people wanting a lead object in Salesforce, or sorry, in HubSpot as well, to like differentiate some of that data. So I think it really depends. I think if they are maybe more of a like smaller type business and don't really need the lead object, they probably easily could just then sync contacts and contacts. I definitely do think that's like the cleaner way. But that said, we have heard a ton about, you know, still needing that lead. I think we'll maybe provide people ways to like sync that directly into HubSpot down the road. But yeah, I guess I would recommend definitely, yes, the cleaner way is doing contacts to contacts. But some folks do not want to leave that lead object. I will say, I used to consult folks on our integration years ago, and there were a lot of people that could not let that lead object go. So I do think the best way is just then making sure it does go through that circle. A lot of companies too also love to create duplicates in the lead object. Like every time maybe a contact like views their website, they want it to be created as a net new lead, even if it already exists. So there's some weird data things folks do. I think it's just for tracking and reporting purposes, but I think there's a good opportunity to get what they want, maybe track it in a different way. So I think that it's just to chat with them, I think would be the best suggestion if they don't want to give up that lead object.
Yeah. Is there any plan to increase visibility into the sync log so that we can better troubleshoot sync errors? Currently, we work with a technical consultant at HubSpot who will review the logs and share the details.
Yeah, so we actually do have a super advanced internal tool for our folks to use to get a lot of insight into like when things sync, when they error. I think there's a lot of cool, this is where I'll like nerd out on sync. I think there's a lot of cool stuff that we could eventually expand on for sync insights. And actually knowing like when things happened or reverting changes or just getting like additional details. I don't think we'll have it. So yeah, nothing on the roadmap yet, but I think that's something that could be incredibly helpful down the road. I would say as the start, we're really just trying to expose a lot more within our errors to show like why things happen. But our data sync team at HubSpot is doing a lot of stuff with just like data clarity, data visibility. And I know some folks are thinking about some things there to kind of better have a log of all the changes and what's happening, or be able to like bulk revert those changes. Maybe you did an import and shouldn't have happened. So we're definitely brainstorming a bunch of cool stuff that I think will eventually come down the road. But I'm right there with you. I definitely think it is needed.
Cool. So we are coming up at time here. I'm dropping a survey into the chat. If you all could give us feedback on this session, I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions or requests for future sessions, there's just a free text box on that survey. Tell me what you'd like to see here, and I'll do my best to get it. Brandy, thanks so much for being here. Seems like the crowd loves you. I'm excited to have you back in the future. If anyone wants to connect with you, how do you like folks to find you?
Yeah.
More with Brandy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, definitely feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I feel like I shouldn't say this, so I'm just gonna say it. My email is brandy@HubSpot. So if you want to, and I locked that down early in my career, so feel free to send me an email. We have a ton of stuff growing and moving on our team, and we're actually currently hiring to have way more dedicated support and stuff for our Salesforce integration. So if I'm a little delayed, that's why. We just have a lot of busy stuff moving, but we're doing a lot of cool stuff. So definitely want to hear from everybody, and definitely we're well aware of some of the pain points. But I think we have a lot of really cool opportunities down the road, and definitely want to hear from you guys if I can add more insight. Happy to. But.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being here. Thanks everyone for attending. This is a great session. Lots of people, very active chat here. And I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. The recording will be sent out later today. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks everybody for being here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.